The Carolina Panthers now go into week number 7 with possibly a lot of things at stake. One of them possibly being an opportunity to get back to 500, over 500 for the first time since 2021. Question is, when they walk into MetLife Stadium, are the Panthers going to show up like they did on the first drive against the Patriots? Or are they going to falter like they did the remainder of that game? The prospects are there for the Panthers to show up and finish what they started and leave their mark. But are they just going to flown out of the Big Apple? Stay tuned to find out why I think the latter is going to be true on this edition of Growlin' and Prowlin'. Welcome back, Growlers. Thank you guys so much for joining us here on this edition of Growlin' and Prowlin'. Of course, you're growling with the one and only Mr. CeeLo. And guys, I must tell you, I am excited because not only is my viewership going up and you guys are finally starting to take notice of Mr. CeeLo's hard work, but you guys are starting to understand what it is that is going on around here. But I do have, before we get into the content, some good news to report to you. As wide receiver, this is for all you cokeheads out there. Jalen Coker has been a full participant in practice today and Wednesday. Also, Austin Corbett has been a full participant. Now, some things that I'm sure you don't want to hear. Caleb Evans has been a limited participant. J.C. Horn was limited yesterday, and he was a full participant today. Chuba Hubbard was limited today and yesterday. Patrick Jones II has been officially shut down for the rest of the year with his back. And it's a shame because he's had some really good moments, but apparently he's been dealing with this all season. It's a horrible situation for us, and himself, because it seemed as though he was going to come in here and make some huge strides. And there were a couple of games where he was really good against the run, especially in that Atlanta game. Taylor Moton was limited Wednesday and Thursday. Jatavian Sanders was a limited participant Wednesday, but a full participant today. Tershawn Wharton was limited yesterday and today. And Damian Lewis did not practice today, something to do with his chest. Now, guys, I'm going to say it like this. This is not what you want to hear when it comes to the O-line. I mean, you wanted to hear Austin Corbett, but you did not want to hear Taylor Moton and Damian Lewis because we're already down Robert Hunt. And last week we were down Taylor Moton. But the good thing about Dan Morgan and his intellect that he does not get enough credit for, he went out and he signed back Cade Mays and he signed back Austin Corbett, as well as the big signing, which was Brady Christensen. And y'all guys are not going to hear me spare any hot air talking about this guy. I am going to continuously talk about Brady Christensen because if you guys watch my show consistently, you know I love Brady Christensen. He arguably, during the Matt Rule era, people questioned whether or not this guy was big enough to play the tackle position, but he's balling out. He's one of those success stories where the coaching staff didn't know what to do with him, and they ended up making an all-purpose backup out of this guy. And to me, he is going to be the guy that revolutionizes what I like to call the five-way backup. You're going to see so many of these, what I like to call undersized tackles that they played in college. Now, they're not going to be the full-time answer at your left tackle position. It'll be a situation where, hey, you basically show up on the report that your left tackle is injured, and he's a guy you throw in at the last minute. Now, a lot of people are going to say, well, what sense does that make? Well, if the opposing side doesn't have to prepare for you at that position, they have a rougher time trying to deal with you. Now, I know a lot of people are going to say, that makes no sense. When you watch enough film, that goes for every position. They don't just pick quarterbacks, wide receivers, and running backs and look for tendencies. They do that with every position, people. And Brady Christensen is great as a guard. He is great as a center. He's good as a right tackle. And he's okay, a little above average for a left tackle. He's not what you consider your prototypical left tackle, which is why Ike Ekwonu was initially, drafted. They were not confident with his arm length and this, that, and the other. And yeah, but he's still better than a lot of starters on other teams. So again, Damian Lewis did not practice. Taylor Moton was limited. So if this turns into a situation where Corbett, who can practice, when I look at this, theoretically, Corbett struggled a lot at center. The question is, would he be capable of going back to guard? Despite the fact he won the job, we keep looking at Cade Mays, and he's doing such a great job in that position. I don't know what Dave Canellis said that he put Austin over the top. I know when I chose to decide who won this job, my whole principle in it was Austin Corbett's experience and what he brings to the party when it comes to that experience. And that's what you want to see is experience, especially from your center. You can never write that off as being anything less than what you saw from Jeff Saturday. It wasn't specifically what he did just when it came to blocking. It was also about what he did cerebrally. And I'm not saying Cade Mays is that dude. I am saying that there's a lot of talk that Austin Corbett was that guy. However, when you really start to look and say, this guy makes our team better. But we're in a situation now, if Damian Lewis, this would be a huge one because you've got $150 million in guard play on the sideline. Not what you intended for when you signed these two guys to the max deal, the big deals that they have. Not saying that we cannot play the game that we want to. I get it. You would want to believe you can beat this Jets team without that. Because what the Jets are going to try to do, they're going to try to do the exact same thing that we do. They're going to try to use the run game to set up Justin Fields. They're more than likely going to try to get Justin Fields more on the perimeter and get his feet involved. Because realistically, Justin Fields, as much as I want to like this kid is very limited in the passing game. And we saw it last week. We've seen it a lot of times during the season. And even Jets fans are saying, you got to go all the way back to week 1 to see Justin Fields really put on a show. And I even picked him up on fantasy because I thought, okay, he's balling out. And I think he had almost 30 fantasy points. But he has not replicated that. And there is a huge, huge player that more than likely is not going to play. They've got him listed as questionable, but I got a feeling that Garrett Wilson is not going to be dressed. And if he does dress, he's not going to be 100%. And more often than not, they're going to try to keep him away from J.C. Horn. And I think, and I'm just going to say this because a lot of y'all have ripped this guy. I think a not 100%, 100% Garrett Wilson is not as good as a 100% Mike Jackson. Mike Jackson doesn't have any designation. I think this guy is going to be able to handle Garrett Wilson if that's the case. And then outside of that, I think the Panthers defense, I hope Coach Avero understands that this football team wants to run the ball. They don't have anything else. They're going to have to run the football. And they're going to have to stay on their P's and Q's. And it's going to look like it's a bunch of the young guys going to be out there, being that Patrick Jones II is pretty much done for the year. So it's probably going to be Nick Scorton starting on that side. And realistically, we're going to have to do... Roseboom and Trayvon Wallace have played so much better. Trayvon Merrick has done a much better job filling up those gaps that we were seeing. Defensively on the run, against the run, we have done so much better. Moving up, I think we're right there at the middle, high middle, if you will. Same thing with everything else. I think ultimately we're going to have to continue to make strides. And until we literally are able to get the passing game as crisp, now it's looked good, and this is no knock on Bryce, that we until we get it where we've got it completely crisp and to that point, and until Dave Canellis understands we don't need to be throwing these things short. Bryce has looked good throwing that thing from 15 yards on out. That's where we need to live. Tight ends need to eat things up. Look, but just because Jatavian Sanders and Jalen Coker's coming back, things don't need to change. I think Jatavian Sanders needs to be that tight end dude that catches it and takes it big time down the field. I think he needs to be a big play threat. We could even say that about Mitchell Evans. He caught a big touchdown last week. So where are all my haters that said that we need a tight end? Y'all need to learn the game. A lot of that's on Canellis. We've just got a wealth of riches right now, you guys. That's what we have. I mean, there's no other way to put it. Now we've got Coker coming back, and then people are talking about how XL has played. XL's not been a problem. The issue has been Canellis has to set it up where he can get the football. That you go back and watch the replay of the beautiful touchdown pass that Bryce threw to Rico Dowdle. XL was wide open in the end zone. He had beaten his man by 5 yards. So a lot of times it's not necessarily the design that was called, but he was open. He was, people. Well designed by Dave Canellis. Very well designed. But let's talk about the elephant in the room. And that would be if Chuba Hubbard comes back, how many snaps does he take? Or how many carries does he get? And how prominent does he play into this game plan? First of all, if Chuba Hubbard is limited, he can dress, but he doesn't need to have a lot of reps. I would say he gets a blow. He gives Rico a blow. That's all it needs to be. And that's simple as that, because the reality of it is I'm not taking Chuba's job from him. I'm not going to do that. However, he don't need to be rushed back because we got a game next week against a really good football team that is on a bye this week. And they just got beat by the Falcons because they ran it down their throats. This is a game we could very well win without Chuba playing a lot of snaps. And then when Chuba comes back next week, he can be a full go and a starter when we play Buffalo. You heard me right. Look, I'm not gonna go away from this because the truth of the matter is Rico Dowdle had a stroke of very good fortune because finally somebody got in Canellis's and told him, what are you doing with Brady Christensen? Finally, he was intelligent enough to realize, look, I need this dude to do what you paid him for. To be that 5 guy. He's that 5 guy. He can play every position on the field. He's that utility knife that you have that's not a skill player. Put him out there. Stop worrying about whether he's going to get hurt. Look, we already know we've lost Hunt pretty much for the season. We're possibly going to get Austin Corbett back, and then that means that frees up Kate Mays. Or, I think if it's not broke, you don't fix it. I think you ultimately say to Austin Corbett, look, dude, you are a much better guard than you were center. We didn't know what we had at the time. I know a lot of people are going to say, well, why can't we move Cade Mays? I mean, I get it, but then when you get in a situation where you're playing well with a certain group, don't change it. You know, let's keep it as such. So I know a lot of people are going to say we weren't this and we weren't that, but you stick with what's working. You stick with what's working. And it would be great if we could get Taylor Moton back, even though he's limited. I'm also of the belief that if, Moton's not ready, Nijman did a great job this week. He was a lot better than he was against New England. Needless to say, if we can get Taylor Moton another week, I think any of our guys that we don't deem as major needs or major players. Now I know people are going to say, well, Moton is a major player. Well, he is, but not for this game. I got a feeling we can still run the ball against this football team without Taylor Moton. We proved that against Dallas last week, and there's really no one on the Jets that scares me on that edge that Nijman can't block. But as far as the Chuba Hubbard thing goes, look, let's do it. Rico Dowdle is not our dude. A lot of people are saying go ahead and sign him. I'm not of the Julian council. Beat him up and run him to death and then get rid of him. I'm not of that type of school. You know what I'm saying? I think you can have a really good running back and still win championships. I think this team could win a championship if we can get the salary cap right. We just got to sign the right players for the right amount. And this team is starting to come together. And everybody's saying, well, I'm not ready to anoint them yet. I'm not ready to anoint them, but I'm saying this team could win a Super Bowl if the chips fall right. The turnovers haven't come yet. But in a sense, they're going to. And then the realistic part about this whole thought process is here. We're starting to score at will again, like we did last season, you guys. And see, I told all of you it was going to come back. All it was is it took a minute. You got to think. We still had some new pieces that came in here. And Bryce had to get back to that form again. Look, you can practice and practice and practice, but until you get into real game speed, not to mention the fact that Bryce has to change some things up. You can't come out here and run the same script every single day, and then the defense has had all summer to watch you. Trust me, these coaches ain't sitting back if you're on their schedule, and they're going to say, hey, look, this is what he doesn't do well. This is what he does do well. Let's take that away from him. Coupled with the fact that now Tetairoa McMillan has scored his first touchdown and gotten that monkey off his back. I can't wait, y'all. I can't flip and wait. I think we do our thing this week. I looked at the way Denver struggled, even though that was a over the pond game. I think ultimately this is going to be a situation where I think we're gonna be able to move the football on the ground. I think our offensive line is underratedly one of the best, and this is with guys on the injured list. You gotta give some love to Dan Morgan, Dave Canellis for putting this thing together with this offensive line, because right now, this offensive line is arguably one of the best, because everybody's talking about Rico Dowdle, and ladies and gentlemen, let me help you out with something. You can't get the first 3 to 4 yards without being touched unless that offensive line is absolutely blowing people off the ball. That is a fact. And as I said, I'm not afraid of anything that the Jets have to throw at us. They're not very good against the run, and I think ultimately this is going to be a game where the Carolina Panthers come out, they don't shoot themselves in the foot, and that is going to be the only way this game is even close, you guys. I'm going to go ahead and I'm calling it. They're going to win this game, and then they're going to go, and they're going to finish the job against Buffalo and finish this division at 3-1, which they should have been undefeated. You heard me. But they're going to finish this division, and everybody's going to say, you think they're going to beat Buffalo? I'll tell you why on my show when I do the preview next week. Because if you watch the Atlanta game, need I say more? Let me know what you guys think about the Carolina Panthers versus the New York Jets over at MetLife Stadium in New York City. Guys, make sure you put your comments down below. Make sure you put your name down in the comments. Guys, I can't stress that enough. If you guys watch maybe I need to say this at the beginning of the show because, guys, listen, I'm not trying to be mean, but I want to know who you are. There's been some postponements in the shirt. I've almost got it ready. I know you guys are itching to hear about it. You're ready for it. God knows I'm ready to get it on. I'm ready to wear it. But, yeah, just make sure you put your names down there. Make sure your comments are concise and clear so I can put it on the show because I want topic discussions, if you will, and I want to get to a point where I have to have a show where it's all about questions and all about comments. Ultimately I want to be able to do a roundtable, as I've told you many a times. We get these subs up, I want to do a traveling roundtable. Also, make sure you go to the Facebook page and Facebook group, Growling and Prowling. Make sure you join and add as a friend. Finally, make sure you go to my Instagram at Mr. CeeLo so you can keep up with all of my off-season and in-season shenanigans on the spot. But until the next time, don't forget to leave your mark while prowling the airwaves and growling out. Keep pounding!